dedicated to truth, justice, and peace for all mankind.
Previously on Ready to Die.
Can you tell the jurors, in doing the initial steps that you just described as it relates to the autopsy of Jamari Holmes, can you tell the jurors that what we're looking at in State Exhibit 6 and in to the initial injuries that you observed to Mr. Holmes?
And so this is the back of Mr. Holmes's head.
Damn! Put your glasses back on.
We've got about 4 or 5 things to take up before the jury comes in. One of them is the instruction that we're going to give to the jury regarding the fact that we are proceeding right now with 2 defendants instead of 6. I have a proposed instruction from the state. I didn't see any proposed instructions from the defense. Were there any?
You sent that last night.
To Ms. Percefield?
Yeah, 10:01, I believe. Let me make sure we have my. It's not stuck in my outbox or something.
Okay.
You saw it, Matt? Yeah, I saw it. You all saw it.
Okay, well, I don't have it, which doesn't mean Ms. Percefield doesn't have it, but she typically sends me what she gets, so she'll be back with us in just a second. I have worked on a version based on what Mr. Abadi sent, but I'll obviously look at yours as well. Okay, so that's one thing. Then we have our witness list for the truncated week. There's a motion to limit autopsy photos. I guess this is from the drinks shooting. And then there's a motion to prohibit recall of Detective Thorpe, which I actually haven't even had a chance to read yet, but if either of those is not opposed, then we can handle those in short order. And then with regard to, when we actually left the jury last over a week ago, counsel for Mr. Nichols had moved for a mistrial, and I had denied a mistrial with prejudice, but inquired as to whether she was interested in a mistrial without prejudice. And of course, that issue is now moot. And I don't know what anybody who's still here's position currently is with regard to whether they feel any entitlement to a mistrial without prejudice. But I will hear from counsel for Mr. Kendricks and Mr. Stillwell as to that issue.
Mr. Kendrick is not interested in a mistrial without prejudice, Your Honor. So if that's not going to be granted,
All right.
One with prejudice is not going to be granted. We're not interested in without prejudice.
All right. Well, have y'all moved for one with prejudice with regard to
Well,
what our last issue was?
I believe under the Harvey rule that all of us had joined that unless we specifically opted out.
All right. Okay. Well, that had been denied. So if there's nothing else with regard to that, y'all do not want one without prejudice. All right. How about you, Mr. Short, on behalf of Mr. Stillwell?
Good morning, Your Honor. We are in the same position. We are not moving for a mistrial without prejudice.
All right. Well, that takes care of that issue. How about let's look at our list of witnesses for the week. There are, thank you, 3, she brought it in to me, 3 witnesses who it is proposed not be shown on camera. And I believe the reason provided for that was each of those witnesses works in an undercover capacity. Is that right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Any objection on that?
Mr. Kendrick only objects to investigator, I believe it's Stark or Starks, just because I'm not sure why they should not be shown when they're featured on the Facebook page of the APD throwing a football and their image is shown. So I think if there was a concern about not showing that particular witness, they wouldn't be publicizing his face on Facebook.
Well, it may be that their face had not been associated with their name, which is no longer the case.
Well, no, it features his name.
These nuts. Got him. Got him.
I wouldn't have said it otherwise, Your Honor.
Okay, appreciate that. Is that the case?
Your Honor, I'm not aware of that until this moment. I know that he also works in the same unit as Investigator Flores.
Is that on?
It's not okay.
As to that investigator, Your Honor, we were unaware of that until this moment, so we're going to look.
All right, well, y'all check on that. That seems like a pretty valid objection, and no objection with regard to the other 2. So we can circle back on Starks, who wouldn't be called until later in the week anyway. All right, that takes care of that. Ms. Percefield, Mr. Weinstein said that they had also forwarded around 10 p.m. last night, a proposed jury instruction. Can you see whether you've got that? And if so, forward it.
If you don't see it, I can resend it to you.
I only see.
If you don't mind just resending it, it might be the easiest way to do
I'll
it.
resend it.
Sorry, I don't see it.
No worries.
All right, in the meantime, how about the autopsy photos? Have y'all, on the drinks killing, have y'all discussed what is or is not coming in on that amongst yourselves?
We haven't, Your Honor, although I'm not going to say at this point that I believe we need judicial involvement. I don't want to be involved.
All right,
I just
what-
saw that this.
Okay, why don't y'all get together and see if y'all can come to agreement about what would come in, and if there's disagreement after y'all talk, then y'all bring that back up to me. Okay, the recalling of Detective Thorpe. You want to just give me a summary?
Yes, Your Honor. As Your Honor knows and has been doing in this case, you have discretion and control over the way evidence is presented and witnesses that are called. One thing that, from my observations, has been important with moving this case along is when a witness testifies, and then we cross-examine that witness, you have been limiting the state on the redirect to the scope of the cross, which I think is important. Detective Thorpe testified previously as lead investigator for the Donovan Thomas case back in September, I believe, and he was on the stand for several days. The state, through discovery, provided me with a copy of a statement. There's been several statements made. This was around the time that Mr. Stillwell was in the car with Tara Jones when she was shot, and then he was also served with arrest warrants at that time for Donovan Thomas. There is an interrogation that took place. Detective Thorpe is the individual who was in charge of questioning Mr. Stillwell. Detective Gaither walked in towards the middle of the interrogation. But this interrogation was never brought up by the state in their direct of Detective Thorpe back in September. I certainly did not bring it up. No defense counsel brought it up. So by recalling Thorpe and getting into this interrogation, that's something that they wouldn't have been allowed if, based on your Honor's previous rulings. Of course, every ruling is different, but based on your Honor's previous rulings, that would have been outside the scope of cross, or outside the scope of cross for them to get into that on redirect. And it just seems to me simply recalling him is just an end around of that rule that we've been abiding by.
All right, let me hear from the state on this matter.
So, Your Honor, Detective Thorpe, he's going to be covering three, I'll call it categories of testimony. For one, he is going to be discussing Defendant Kendrick's statement to law enforcement that was pertaining to the Donovan Thomas murder. Also, Detective Thorpe was the lead detective, homicide detective, on the March 11th, 2022 murder of Christian McMiller and Darius Ford, which, as the state has articulated to this court before, is intrinsic to the Chamel drinks because it leads up to that murder.
Yeah, and I don't think the objection is as to that. So what's the third?
So, Your Honor, third is that the questioning, because Detective Thorpe is going to be testifying about those first two, the state's questioning of Detective Thorpe in relation to Defendant Stillwell's statement, I would proffer would be 15 to 20 minutes. The state intends to ask Detective Thorpe questions, not play the statement, which alleviates need for fights over redactions or playing to the jury. So in the state's, legally, the state is calling a witness to testify about relevant admissible evidence, specifically two statements of party opponent. And so the state feels that there's not a valid legal objection to keep out relevant admissible evidence, and the state also feels that Detective Thorpe is going to efficiently cover three topics, which could be different witnesses.
Okay, but with regard, I don't think the issue is as to the other two. It's as to talking to him about Stillwell's statement from November of 2015, a topic we seemingly already covered. Why should y'all be able to get into that again? Is there something about that statement that is now, I mean, I guess you're saying it's relevant to the Drinks murder? Is that what your position is?
No, Your Honor. My position is that with Detective Thorpe on the stand, he's going to be discussing both current defendants in this case, their testimony and statements that he gave with them. He was going to already be discussing Defendant Kendrick's
Yeah, I
statement.
understand the other stuff.
So the state's position is that him discussing a statement of party opponent of Defendant Stillwell is legally relevant admissible evidence.
Okay, but
And we have not covered that statement with the jury.
in any way?
No, Your Honor.
They called Detective Thorpe to talk about this homicide.
This homicide being,
Donovan Thomas, 2015, January 10, 2015. And they never brought up my client's statement. They never, we certainly never brought up my client's statement. And we proceeded with trial since then with the understanding that they called the lead investigator in the case, and that wasn't what they, and I don't really want to go get lost in the weeds. But I'll just leave it at that. They chose not to call to ask about that. Now they're asking months later to relitigate.
all right, so if you had Detective Thorpe on the stand talking to him about the Thomas murder already, which you did, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Then it seems that would have been the time to talk to him about Mr. Stillwell's statement from around that time. And I mean, I appreciate, we can do it efficiently, but you already had him on once, so why weren't you covering, why is now the time to be covering that instead of back when you already called him?
Understood, Your Honor. Part of what the timing of this is because of Detective Dennis initially discussed Defendant Kendrick's statement. Because that testimony on that day was excluded, Detective Thorpe is discussing that statement of defendant Kendricks. And because he's going to be discussing or testifying about that statement, the statement was in October with defendant Kendrick. The statement with defendant Stillwell is in November. And so the state feels that because he's going to be discussing that statement with Kendrick in October, it's relevant to have him briefly address the statement he also gave with defendant Stillwell after that statement.
Well, that's a red herring, Your Honor, because Dennis has nothing to do with the statement of Stillwell. He wasn't present. He couldn't have testified to that. So, yes, they may be calling Thorpe for different things, and that's not my issue.
Right.
But they just can't lump in something that they should have asked about months ago.
So, Your Honor, the brass tacks of this issue is the state, of course, feels that this statement is favorable for the state's theory. Defense wants to keep it out, and the state's position is that a targeted question of Detective Thorpe, who was already, we're not adding a witness. The reason I brought up the other matters is because I think it's relevant in terms of the efficiency of the trial if we have one witness covering 3 separate topics, and a 15 to 20 minute questioning targeted of Detective Thorpe, who's already going to be testifying, is just relevant admissible evidence that the state feels should not be legally excluded under a statutory or legal basis to exclude relevant admissible statement of a party opponent.
I mean, essentially, if you've been covering this trial, like, I don't know, incident by incident, I guess, which is sort of how y'all have been doing it, then you've already covered the Donovan Thomas murder with this witness. So it is like you're being able to do an in run around, well, gosh, we forgot to cover that on direct, and now we want to do it again. We want to redo. Essentially, we want to be able to recall him. And so why didn't you do it the first time?
Your Honor, I don't know exactly why the state, there's not some secret or tactician trying to be gained by putting the statement in now, to be quite frank with the court. It's just the state, and sometimes this happens in trials, where a witness can be recalled to talk about testimony that has not been discussed.
All right. I mean, but essentially that's what you're doing, right? Is saying, okay, we haven't gotten to some of these things, but we'd also, while he's up here, like to be able to essentially recall him as to this other thing that we didn't cover before.
Well, Your Honor, the primary purpose of Detective Thorpe, and the reason I keep bringing up Kendrick's statement is because that's kind of, in the state's position, critical to why we're discussing this, because if he's going to be discussing one of the defendants in trial statement at this present time, because that prior testimony is not in evidence, the state feels that it's important to talk about the other defendant remaining on trial statement that was close in time because that's the main reason for now, Your Honor.
We'll get to you in a minute. Mr. Shart, how would you be prejudiced by this? I mean, you know about the statement. You are certainly capable of cross-examining.
I hope I am. But I've known about the statement. But the state made decisions not to, and I think it was strategic. Their strategy quite well.
That might be giving them a little too much credit.
Well, it's ironic because Mr. Stillwell said things in his statement that were very helpful to Mr. Williams. And they chose not to put that into evidence. Now Mr. Williams is pled. Now all of a sudden they want to recall this gentleman to bring in that statement. And I've been proceeding with this trial over the last 3 months, under, I think, the fair belief, based on the way things have been going, that wouldn't be admitted into evidence. Now, I'm not trying to throw anyone under the bus, but I find out about this. I see Detective Thorpe's name all of a sudden show up on a witness list when it wasn't on the upcoming witness list. And then it's, well, why are we recalling Detective Thorpe? And it's, well, to talk about Kendrick's statement, to talk about the Mac Miller and Darius Ford murder, which I get. But then it's like, oh, and we might ask him some questions about the statement your client gave that we didn't ask about back in September. And I don't think that's appropriate. And I think that, I don't think it's appropriate to be able to recall witnesses repeatedly to highlight, when you want to highlight them, what their testimony is. If this was going to be brought out, then it should have been brought out in September.
I guess if I deny it at this point in time, the defense can put on whatever case they're going to put on, if they're going to put on a case. But I think that you had indicated before you had at least some defense case. Is that right? I mean, you had indicated that before. Anyway, if you do, then they get a chance to have a rebuttal case anyway, so they can put it up then. I mean, I guess we could do it that way.
Right. Assuming it was a logical rebuttal to what we presented.
All right. Do you pretty much know what it is they want to be getting about whatever he may have said in November of 2015?
I mean, there's a 120-page transcript. It's I don't know, an hour and a half, I'll say.
Your Honor,
you want to proffer what it is?
It's not a secret in terms of
Go ahead.
The whereabouts of defendant Stillwell is the key issue. He states unequivocally he was in Miami.
Okay.
And so on the day of the murder. And so that is the main point of, there's no hiding the ball with it. That's the main, it's his whereabouts on the day of the murder.
All right. Any further
Well,
argument?
it's not that simple because there was a
Did
statement.
he go to Miami with the crowd that went to
I
Miami
think the
the
evidence
next
would
day?
show that he went the next day. And
Which is the day, I mean, it's easy enough to explain as well.
Right, and so the video shows that Mr. Stillwell saying that he was in Miami, and then there's Detective Thorpe kind of unwinds that and says how that would be impossible, and then eventually Mr. Stillwell agrees. So, it's like when you boil it down to a one sentence, he said he was in Miami. That really doesn't give the whole story. Now we're opening up to the whole video once again and exactly what was said in the context, because it wasn't him just saying, "Oh, I was in Miami," period. It becomes clear that he thought he was in Miami that day, and then when they talk about, he puts himself with Kenneth Copeland in Miami, and then they say, "Well, Kenneth Copeland was in my office after the homicide, so you couldn't have been in Miami." And then eventually, I think it's fair to say that Mr. Stillwell says, "Okay, I understand what you're saying." That's not a direct quote, but so that. I don't know why he's being recalled.
Okay, and why wasn't that presented to begin with, when you had him up here before talking about either the Thomas murder or when Mr. Stillwell came and gave a statement as a victim?
Your Honor, I don't know exactly why that was not presented earlier.
Okay, all right, I'll think about that. He's not going to be our first witness. Yes, sir, Mr. Weinstein.
Good morning, Your Honor. You mentioned end runs earlier today. If you recall, maybe you don't know, Detective Dennis was the one that was supposed to be speaking about Mr. Kendrick's interview, and you rightfully sanctioned him. I would love for you to recall your righteous degree of anger at this point, but I won't bring that up.
Oh, I remember.
So I'd like you to keep that in your mind while I'm talking. But this is an attempt by the state to do an end run around that. Now, I know later you said that if they had witnesses on the list already, and they could go and then talk about things. So we had someone get up and start talking about, lyrics that wasn't initially supposed to talk about more than
Right.
Nibin matches. But I don't believe that Thorpe was supposed to come up again. And this is just an attempt to get this testimony in about Mr. Kendrick's statement that was rightfully pretty much barred
All
by
right,
you,
well,
by you stopping Dennis. So I don't
understand.
think they should be allowed to do this end run. Your
Okay,
Honor.
I barred Dennis. I didn't, but at the same time, y'all asked, well, can topics be covered? If they were going to be covered by him, could they be covered by other witnesses? And I said, as long as there was somebody on the witness list already, that they couldn't add people, but if they already had somebody on the witness list who could cover those things, that they would be permitted to cover those things. So as long as we had Detective Thorpe somewhere on our witness list again, then I would deny that. So we had that long
I'm not. Was he
order
on y'all's
of
witness list again?
witnesses. Was he on there anywhere?
I don't believe he was on there again, but before I make that representation, I'd like the state to verify that.
Well, we can check, Your Honor. I'm pretty sure he was, but if he wasn't, he was on the main witness list.
Yeah.
The rules of evidence only require that the witness be included in the witness list.
Oh, I know. I don't know if you were with us yet when we had the debacle about Detective Dennis, but that was a sanction. That wasn't an evidentiary ruling.
So Thorpe was not, I don't believe Thorpe was on the list to come back again. So this is an attempt to basically gut your sanction by bringing Thorpe back.
All right. If he was not on the witness list to be recalled, then I'm not going to permit it.
Your Honor, if I can recall our meeting at the bench, you didn't I don't believe you specified the
Yeah, I
shortened
did.
list. I think you said if he's a witness who's already been on the witness list, we cannot add anyone, but if he was a witness.
Okay,
on
we'll
the-
go back and check.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor.
Because that is not my recollection. My recollection is if they were going to be testifying anyway, but they could not be added.
And my recall is the same as your honors. Otherwise, your sanction would
Yeah.
be utterly meaningless.
That was,
We're not going to argue about it right now. We're just going to go back and check and see.
Mr. Lee, looking at State Exhibit 38NN, if you can tell us, what are you wearing in 38NN?
Shorts, jacket, mask.
And does the shorts and the jacket have words on it?
Yeah.
What are the words?
Slap.
Do you
Make
have-
America slime again.
And what, do you know who's the designer of that clothing?
Who made it?
Yes.
Miles.
Miles, is that Miles Farley?
Yeah.
And do you call him Slatto?
Huh?
Does he have a nickname?
Miles.
Do you call him Slatto as well?
Do I call him that?
Yes.
If you go by it.
Have you called him that before?
Yeah.
All right. And in that picture, who is the person standing you?
Which one?
The one with his arm over your shoulder.
Look like Yak.
You said the look like, is it Yak or?
Yeah, I think that's him.
All right. And the person that's next to you in the tan jumpsuit, do you know who that is?
I don't know his name.
Okay. All right. And then the person who we can't see the face, do you sitting here now remember or know who that is?
I don't remember what that is either.
All right. Now I'm going to show you what's been admitted at State's Exhibit 39NN. Who is in that picture?
My two friends.
And who are they?
BB and Christian.
Okay. Do you know Christian's full name?
I forgot his last name.
Does the last name Eppinger sound familiar to you?
Yeah, I think that's it.
And BB, do you know his first name?
Rante.
And do you know whose Instagram posting this is?
I don't remember.
Okay. Do you see on the caption 2 emojis?
I can't hear you. I mean, can you say that again?
Sure. Do you see on the caption 2 emojis?
Yeah.
What are the 2 emojis?
I don't know what the first one is.
Okay.
The second one looked like a snake, or it might be like, I don't know.
Okay. All right. As an artist, have you released a song entitled Where You From?
Yes.
Okay. And are you the writer of that song?
I didn't write it, but yeah,
So you didn't write any of the lyrics?
No.
Did you write some of the lyrics?
I just said it.
Okay. When did you release that song?
I don't remember.
All right. Did you work with anyone to compose that song?
Yes.
Okay. So did you give input to the writers about the song?
Not I know of. I don't know. The label just dropped it.
Okay. But before the label dropped, did you have to go to the studio and record it?
Yeah.
Okay. And prior to going to the studio to record the song, did you have some words on the paper? How did you know the words you were going to say in the song?
I just said it.
Okay, so you never wrote it. You just spit it from your head.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you have a video from that song?
Did I shoot a video?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
All right. And have you had the opportunity with me to watch that video?
Yeah, I think we did.
All right. I'm going to show you what's been marked or previously marked as Exhibit 45 NN. Is that the disc with the video that you watched a few weeks ago?
Yes.
All right. And when you watched that video, did it appear to be a fair and accurate depiction of the video that you released for this song?
Yeah.
Right. Did it appear to have any additions or deletions?
No, not that I can recall.
All right. Your Honor, this time I'm going to say like a tender and admit Exhibit 45 NN into evidence.
You may.
Same location, same text code.
Let's just watch it.
Hands together for Shabuzi.
No pack, I'm trying to rob him. And I keep a stick, ain't no avoiding myself. Drop top, coupe, looking for who? Let it bang when you free. That's safe for you. But you flipped in the seat, I'm on Rodeo. I'm that shine they always talk about. Passion never touching them. I just beat a murder rep. Pay my lawyer 30 for that. Pay my signs of butter law. We ain't already no credit off. One with the 4x4. And you already know you gotta go. And you already know I'm gonna go. I just go to Mario. And I'm Mario. How to hit it, how he hold. I be going the streets. I be getting the deets. I be getting the freaks. I be getting the sheets. When I wipe your nose in your film face, just smile off.
So he uses other language that we discussed as far as wipe your nose.
Throwing dimes through a dart. He lasered them 700.
We got a lot of lingo, but I wouldn't give it away because it's like if people watching it, they go back where they from, start it up, make it seem like they started. Another lingo, we got slime, slack. It's crazy. That's like global now. We started that though.
Care to share what those words mean?
Slack.
Yeah.
Slime love all the time.
And then what about slime?
It's a snake. We snakes. Big anaconda.
There's other individuals. Mr. Nichols is in this video as well as Mr. Lee is in this video, Your Honor. So the 38 seconds does more than just speak of co-conspirator statements, but also other evidence regarding the enterprise, Your Honor.
Can I just ask a question because it's unclear to me? When we're saying the same text code, what do we?
I believe that's the location at 151 Cleveland Avenue.
Oh, okay. Cleveland Avenue.
All right. Any further argument?
No. I would just like a continuing objection. I know it's related.
All right. And then what's the third one?
Your Honor, the third one is, I guess they call it vlogs, video logs, Your Honor. There's only certain timestamps that are relevant, and so I can point to the certain timestamps that are actually relevant.
And then we'd only play those?
Only the relevant sections, yes. We only
Okay.
play the relevant portions. It's a 12-minute video, so we're cutting it down.
All right, so just play the portions that you would propose to play.
Okay, so the first, Your Honor, is going to be 0 seconds to 18 seconds.
Tell me what the is going on.
I got about 24,000 on me right now, like Kobe. 24 shots with me, right on the post. Before I go, I'ma just spin more bricks.
Now, we're going to not play from PowerPoint, just play the actual video.
Whose vlog is this?
The vlog is called A Night with YSL and 4L.
Right, who posted it?
Hold on.
And is this offering anything new?
Yes.
What?
So it shows Mr. Lee, they're at a music studio. There's a portion that shows Mr. Williams in the video. It shows Mr. Kendrick in a portion. It shows Mr. Farley in the video. And then specifically, Your Honor, there's a portion in which Mr. Lee, in speaking with the cameraman and another individual, says something to the effect of, that's why we put that shit on a nigga's tombstone, Your Honor. And what we have is a picture of, that's already been admitted, of the word slat across Donovan Thomas's tombstone. And so he specifically said they're actually talking about slime right before he makes that comment, and he does his finger over his mouth as in to say, shh, that's why he put that shit on the nigga's tombstone. And again, we have a picture of slat over Mr. Donovan Thomas.
Like superimposed over his?
No, his mother went to
his actual tombstone has.
We can show you the picture, Your Honor.
Okay, well, that, I don't know how that could possibly fit with your theory of the case, but it's your case, so okay.
How slat across Donovan Thomas's tombstone? The word. That's the opposition gang defacing.
I know. That makes it really weird. But it's not for me to determine. Let me see that part of the video.
That's going to be it. 318 to 348.
Okay.
Real hot rod. They got life support. What that was on top? Good luck, right? Okay, good luck. Oh, shit, what's my guy? Sound road on that. Not Sound Road. The nigga was not at the bottom. Shit been telling me. The ESPN got blowing it down. Two. Don't try with heart. Don't try hard to go kid shit.
I got hit with 13. I refer y'all nigga with slime.
This shit is in blood. This shit in blood.
I had before slime.
And we also wrote it on nigga too.
Where your tattoos at?
And stop it right here, then we can show you the picture of slat written over Mr. Thomas's tombstone. Additionally, there's a section where Mr. Lee says, we have more stuff than you, and then he says the only thing y'all have more than us is dead niggas. So that's another portion that
Deadness?
dead and words. Dead and words.
Oh, okay. All right, so you would then propose to play those two portions, because the rest of it before then.
And there's one more portion that has Mr. Darius Ford.
Okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. I thought you were saying that Donovan Thomas's mother had slat engraved on her son's tombstone.
No, Your Honor.
Okay, I got you now.
Okay.
It's graffiti over his tombstone.
Yes, Your
Okay.
Honor.
All right, so, but the previous portions that are just, oh, it's this person and that person, the other person, we already know all of that, right? So it would just be these two portions?
And then one last portion, Your Honor, that I don't think associates Mr. Lee with Darius Ford, who was killed, is in this video as well. And that's a small portion at 9:08 to 9:11.
You're going to show that? Or?
Yes.
Okay. So it's going to be the 3:18 to 3:46 and potentially 9:08 to 9:11.
And then the portion I said where he says the only thing they have more is dead and words, which is 054 to 133.
054 to 133?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
Pause right there. That's Mr. Ford, Your Honor.
Okay.
And that's it.
I'll hear from the defense on those three portions.
So, regarding the graffiti, I don't know why this, it seems to me like this is something that would be asked of Mr. Lee. And then if he, potentially this could be impeachment, but I don't know why the out-of-court statement in and of itself would be admissible.
Okay, so can y'all just ask him? Did you, during the filming of some video, did you say?
I think it is important for the jury to see the context in which he made this statement. This is not just a, hey, did you say this? They were literally talking about YSL, slime. He's showing his every slime play nasty. ESPN, we believe every slime play nasty tattoos. And then in the course of that, literally brags about putting something on someone's tombstone, Your Honor. Me asking him does not give the jury any other context around how he said it, when he said it, and the fact of the matter is the smugness of what he says about it.
The what?
Why he says it.
No, I heard just the last part.
The smugness.
The smugness
of how he says it. That, and I think that is important when this enterprise is claiming to not have killed Mr. Thomas, and it is the state's theory that this enterprise were the ones responsible for Mr. Thomas's death, and essentially even after his death, bragged about it in songs, in music, and in videos such as this.
All right, I'm going to permit that. Yes.
Where y'all nigga from? I ain't heard about y'all nigga. I'm good. Where you from, nigga? You from where? Let me call you for real fast. Nothing about you, sir. Look inside my eyes, this ain't no cap, no facade. Where I'm from, young nigga go down, feel the ride. Where I'm from, don't care about where you from, fuck your squad. Familiar with the paper, we some bad boys. Where you from, throw your sick. 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 Where you from? I'm from Blick. Where your setup? I said, where I'm from. Need whole be the setup. But where I'm from, nigga talk too much, then get wet up. And where I'm from, we talk drunk. We don't let up. Damn, where I'm from, slime on the radio shit. The most hater, all hater. But we getting this paper, and we ducking cases. Bitches face. We done dog them all, they switching the trade. See the break, 7.62 on the rock, crew that baby. 7.62 on the rock, crew that baby. How the hell boo rat, little nigga, where the statement? Sailor shiny, he the one that had them running. With that cannon, niggas clicking up like bitches, watch like hacking. Yeah, look inside my eyes, this ain't no cap, no facade. Where I'm from, young nigga go down, feel the ride. Where I'm from, don't care about where you from, fuck your squad. Familiar with the paper, we some bad boys. Where you from, throw your sick. 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 ATLA, NTAGA, that's where I'm from. South of down where I stay, aka the slum. Gonna rock that crew, thug and boo, you know the song. They know I tick, they know about Nick, you think you sleep, speed is tall. Tongue still walking, poked out down the road with them folks, you still walking. Still on the block, with block life very often. Who the jacket out, he wear life, now he boss. Everything was slime, still. Ain't shit changed, this shit still, nigga. Only the guy, the bros on the slime, fucking your hoes, you know. Only the guy, inside my eyes, this ain't no cap, no facade. Where I'm from, young nigga go down, feel the ride. Where I'm from, don't care about where you from, fuck your squad. Familiar with the paper, we some bad boys. Where you from, throw your sick. 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 You know, there's people all that snake, man. Free guys, you know, free roll down the road. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like,
And we're going to end it at 2 minutes and 51 seconds. Just a few questions. Where was that video, like portions that was at a gas station? Where was that gas station located?
Where, right here?
Yes.
On Cleveland.
Okay. Do you know the address on Cleveland, where it is?
No.
Let me ask you, is this a gas station that is across from the old McDonald's?
It might be a Chevron. I don't know which one it is.
Okay. Now, in that song, you talk about the ops. Who would you consider to be the ops of YSL?
I don't know.
You don't know?
Somebody in the song, in the song, I don't know who I was talking about. It's just something cool to use or say in your song.
What about outside of the song? You said that YSL is a gang the last time we talked. Who would be considered the ops of YSL, the gang?
I guess whoever say that is.
Who would you consider to be some of the ops of YSL, the gang?
Nobody.
Nobody. Okay. Do you consider YFN Lucci an op of YSL?
I don't consider him a YSL.
Within Instagram, have you ever talked about Lucci specifically with other individuals of YSL?
Yes.
Okay. And have you talked about him in a positive way, a negative way? What do you think?
Maybe clowning.
You clowned him?
Yeah, or laughing at something.
Okay. Do you recall ever speaking with Mr. Garlington about YFN Lucci specifically?
Yeah, it was a post on Instagram that was funny.
Do you ever recall speaking to Mr. Garlington in a direct message about YFN Lucci?
About a post that was made on Instagram, yes.
Okay. And do you recall what your conversation was with him, with Mr. Garlington?
No, I don't remember about
of Jamari Holmes. Can you tell the jurors that what we're looking at in State Exhibit 6 and in to the initial injuries that you observed to Mr. Holmes?
And so this is the back of Mr. Holmes's head.
damn! Put your glasses back on.
His head is lying on a head block. His face would be towards the top of the picture, the back of his head towards the bottom of the picture where the small ruler is. And there's a gunshot wound of the head that's partially seen in this photograph.
I would share the definition of balling with you white folks, but now gang is slipping souls and not toes. So fuck you.
I'm up before the sunrise, first hit the block, little bad motherfucker with a pocket full of rock. Learn to throw them things, get the skinny little ass kicked, and niggas laugh till the first motherfucker got blasted. I put the nigga in his casket, now they covering the bastard in plastic. I smoke blunts on the regular, fuck when it counts. I'm trying to make $1 million out of quarter ounce, and get them roast on the 5-0. Fuck Got a 45 screaming out survival. Ain't nigga can lay low. Cook some yayo. Holla one time when I say so. Don't wanna go to the pen, I'm hitting fences. Knocks on the nigga back, missing me by inches. And they say, how do you survive? Weighing 165 in the city where the skinny niggas die. Tell mama don't cry, even when they kill me. They can never take the game from a young G. I'm straight ballin'. We always stand straight ballin'. Yeah, straight ballin'. Where my niggas at, trigger? That's right, fuck with a gun. Straight ballin'. Still I'm parolin', I'm the first nigga serving. Pour some liquor on the curb for my niggas that deserve it. But if I wanna make a million, gotta stay dealin', kinda booming round the way. And today I make a killin', dressing down like I'm dirty. But only on the block, it's a clever disguise to keep me running from the cops. I'm getting high.